Welcome to the Complete Story Series from Manga Storian. Today we're going to be covering Berserk Volume 4, and I hope you guys are ready for this. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. At the end of our last chapter, we began to see Guts' upbringing as he traveled with a group of mercenaries. As the group won their last battle, the mercenaries celebrated, but the night came and Guts went to bed. And another mercenary by the name of Donovan entered Guts' room and began to hold Guts down by force. Guts tried to fight off the large man, but using his large size, Guts was no match to defend himself. Donovan kicks Guts in the stomach and he tells him, "It's no use fighting. I've already paid Gambino for this night with 3 silver coins." Guts tries to understand what is going on, but the only thing he can do is endure Donovan having his way. The next morning, Guts lays beaten and broken and he steps out to confront Gambino. But as Guts stands with nothing but a sheet and his sword, Gambino looks at him asking, "What do you want? It's a bit early for sword practice, and I'm too hungover, so go find someone else." Guts begins to think to himself that he doesn't know what happened, and as Guts tries to ask, he stops himself, and he remains quiet. Later, the group rides into battle as Donovan leads the charge. He tells everyone the spoils are theirs, so loot whatever you can first. As the battle goes on, Donovan begins killing the enemy knights and he begins chasing after a few stragglers. But as he kills them, a bolt flies through the air, hitting Donovan in the back. He looks back to see Guts holding a crossbow, and just as he calls him a bastard, Guts fires another bolt right into Donovan's mouth. Donovan falls to the ground and Guts places his sword into Donovan's mouth, telling him, "Say it! Say it again! Who was it that sold me?" The anger is too much for Guts and he slams the blade down into Donovan's mouth before he can talk. Shortly after the battle finishes, the mercenaries receive a blow as their leader, Gambino, comes back with wounds and a missing leg. Guts sits at Gambino's bedside telling him, "This isn't like you. You couldn't have." With the mercenary group now ran by another of their ranks, the group returns from another successful battle and Guts runs up to Gambino telling him, "Look, I killed the enemy general and I get a bonus." Gambino just says, "Where's the meat?" And Guts asks him, "What? Meat for the dog. Go fetch it quickly." And he hits Guts with his crutch. Guts leaves, wiping the blood from his mouth, stating, "Oh, I'll go get it now." As Guts leaves, 2 other mercenaries say that Gambino is in such a great position, and they wish they could be like him. Gambino overhears them and tells them to say it again, and the 2 of them tell him it was just a joke. Gambino draws his sword, telling them to try. Even with a handicap, they're still scared of him. Now get out of his face. Later that night, Guts lays in his bed, and the rain and the storm hits, and he thinks to himself, "Maybe I should quit. Maybe that's probably wrong. I'll just go out and kill tomorrow and get lots of money." As he drifts off to sleep, the lightning outside cracks, and Guts sees a figure standing over him, Gambino holding a sword. Gambino swings his sword down, and Guts jumps out of the way asking, "What are you doing?" Gambino smiles, telling him how he was stupid. "All of this happened because of you. I thought I would die quickly, but look at me now. I lost my leg, and now my mercenary career. Damn funny, isn't it? So what are you gonna do now? Take your revenge on me? For what? You should have died 11 years ago under your mother's corpse." Guts' eyes begin to widen and Gambino swings again, tearing through the tent. And just as he comes back to swing again, Guts grabs his sword, deflecting the attack. Guts is thrown to the ground from the force and Gambino stands over him, telling him, "I'll tell you one thing. Remember that night when we took you into your first battle? Donovan bought you that night for 3 silver. Guts begins to cry, asking him, "Why? Why would you do that?" And Gambino says, "You're disgusting." And he swings again, but that's when he stopped as Guts holds out his sword, stabbing Gambino in the neck. Gambino's body begins to fall and he struggles, stating, "It's because of you that Shizu is dead." And then he bleeds out on Guts. Guts sits there looking at the lifeless body, and the other mercenaries run over to see what's going on, and that's when they see the bloody Guts in Gambino's body. They ask if Guts killed him, and then they reach out to grab him, so Guts slashes at a man's arm, nearly cutting it off. The others begin to draw their swords, and Guts begins to fight them off, and then he runs to escape. He runs to the stable, and he jumps on a horse, and he leaves the camp, but as he rides, the other mercenaries begin to catch up to him. The horse gets closer and closer to a ledge, and the men begin to fire their bolts, and one man lines up a shot and then shoots Guts right in the back, causing him to fall off of the horse and drop down the cliff. Slowly, the rain begins to stop, and at the bottom of the cliff, Guts lays motionless, and then his eyes begin to open. Looking up at the night sky, he begins to pick himself up, using what little strength he has left, and he begins to walk. He tells himself that it would have been nice if he had died, so what is he supposed to do now? As he walks dragging his sword, he notices a pack of wolves gathering around him, and he just smiles. The wolves howl, and he says, "This is it. The end. No more trouble. The wolf lunges at him, but instead of biting, the wolf lands on Guts' sword, like his arm did it on its own. And then again, and then another. The wolves begin to surround him, and Guts begins to fight back, killing all of the wolves that attack. He then stands over their dead bodies, and the rest of the wolves watch, and then they begin to leave. Seeing the wolves leave, Guts begins to relax, and then he collapses with no more strength left. But off in the distance, carriages begin to ride by, and they see Guts' body. The men see that he's still alive, but did he kill all of those wolves by himself? If he did, he's lucky to have been found by them mercenaries. They needed more people anyways. Years start to pass, and Guts is with his new group. During the assault on a castle, the leader calls out that whoever can kill the general will get a prize. The soldiers all begin to attack, and just as one has his head cut in half, a knight wielding an axe towers over him. The other soldiers state that it's the Grey Knight Bazuso. He once killed 30 men with his bare hands. The soldiers start to back up, and then through the crowd, Guts walks forward asking, "How much?" The knights ask, "What?" He says it again, "How much for the 30-man slayer or whatever? He's just a mercenary." The knight says, 5 gold pieces for the head. Bazuso laughs at him, stating, "Only cowards let kids fight for them." And suddenly Guts shifts and swings his sword upwards and then back down into Bazuso's shoulder. He swings again and Bazuso swings, but Guts catches the axe with his sword, slicing into it, pushing him away. Bazuso swings again, but as the axe hits Guts' helmet, it shatters and Guts swings into his side. Just as Bazazu tells him to wait, Guts lifts his sword and slams it down, splitting Bazuso's head. The body falls and Guts just stands out there looking at everyone else. As the battle begins to dwindle down, a group of soldiers watch from a balcony, and one wonders whose group would be better, but another says that they're on a totally different level. Isn't that right, Griffith? A short while later, the leader of Guts' mercenary group hands him his money and tells him that he should stay. He can offer him a good salary. But Guts just takes the money, and after counting it, he walks off. The knight grabs him, telling him to wait, but Guts knocks away his arm, telling him, "Do not touch me." And he then turns his back to the man. The knight tells him that he should just go die in the battlefield, and Guts walks off. A little while later, Guts begins to walk through a field as someone watches, and they call out that someone is coming. Those men were the soldiers watching from the balcony, asking Griffith what they should do. While just laying there, he tells them that they can do whatever they want. The man Corcus starts to lead a group of men down. However, before leaving, another mercenary named Casca laughs, stating that their ability isn't enough to kill the boy. They might just die. Guts continues to walk and then hears the sound of horses, and suddenly he finds himself surrounded. One man charges in, but Guts quickly pulls out his sword and cuts into the man's side. Another soldier charges with a flail, but Guts just cuts his arm off. Corcus shouts that they may need more help, and Griffith tells Casca to just go handle it. Guts gets ready to swing at another soldier, but he's stopped by a bolt flying through and hitting him in the arm. Casca begins to ride her horse towards Guts, drawing her sword, and as she gets close enough, Guts deflects her attack and slashes upwards, hitting her helmet. Guts stops as the helmet flies off, and he sees that this was a girl. Casca jumps off the horse and lunges into attack, but Guts' strength begins to overpower her and he knocks her down to the ground. Just as he's about to deliver the final blow, a spear is thrown, stopping the fight. Guts looks over and Casca shouts, "Griffith!" Griffith looks at Guts holding his sword and he asks, "Are you gonna drop it?" But seeing that he's not, Griffith begins to charge forward. Guts jumps into attack, but Griffith easily deflects the massive sword with a much smaller blade, and then he stabs into Guts' shoulder. Everyone begins to cheer for Griffith, but then everyone begins to see Guts picking himself back up. He walks towards Griffith and he starts to swing, but the wound was too great and then he collapses. As everything begins to fade to black, Guts begins to have nightmares. Everything that happened with Gambino, Donovan, telling them not to touch him, and then he sees a girl with black eyes, and then he wakes up. Guts sees that his wounds have been treated, and he steps outside to see what's going on. That's when he sees mercenaries, but they're all young. Guts looks over to see the girl speaking with Griffith, and suddenly she snaps away, walking towards Guts. He looks into her eyes and he sees that those are the same black eyes from his dream, and then she pulls her fist back and punches right into Guts' wound. She tells him that he should have been killed and walks off. Once Guts picks himself back up, he sees Griffith. Griffith introduces himself and tells him, "You have a great sword, but come, I want to talk with you." The two of them walk through the camp, and Guts looks around at everyone asking, "Who are they?" And Griffith tells him, "We're the Band of Hawks." Guts realizes that this is the mercenary group that he fought against at the castle. Instead of taking the castle in 3 days like they were supposed to, it took 3 months. Once the two of them are alone, Guts begins to ask why his thrust missed. He could have easily killed him, and Griffith tells him it's because he wants him. And Guts stops and asks, "Like in a gay way?" But Griffith says no, he saw him fight a few days ago at the castle, the fight with Bazuso and Corcus' group. You seemed confident, so brave. You're quite interesting. I like you, so I want you. Guts tells him, "Well, I refuse. I don't like you. First you stabbed me and now you want to be my friend?" Griffith tells him, "Okay, what are you going to do?" Guts pulls out a sword, telling him, "We'll determine it this way. If I win, I get to give you a wound like mine. If not, I'll be your soldier or partner or whatever you want." Griffith pulls out his sword stating, "That's good. I don't mind using power to decide things." Casca calls out to him, but he tells her, "Do not help." Guts raises his sword and he swings it down, but Griffith blocks the attack, and as the blades slide past, he slices a part of Guts' arm. Guts wonders how he can fight with such a slim sword and only with one hand. This isn't an ordinary guy, and Griffith suggests that they should do this another day. He's still wounded, but Guts tells him, "No way," and he continues swinging. And just as before, Griffith deflects the attack, slicing away at Guts' arms and legs. Guts suddenly sees a chance, and then he flings sand upward and he swings again, but this time, instead of deflecting it, Griffith jumps and stands on the blade of his sword. Guts tries to lift the blade, but Griffith holds his sword out, facing it towards Guts' face, telling him, "I like you even more now. You'll do anything to win, won't you?" Guts begins to laugh, telling him, "Haha, you talk too much. Now I'll show you what I can use my mouth for in battle." And then he bites down on the end of Griffith's blade. Blood begins to drip from Guts' mouth, and then he pushes on his sword, sending Griffith to fall off the edge of it. The two of them roll down the cliff, and as they reach the bottom, Guts jumps up, punching and kicking Griffith. Griffith is knocked away, but he begins to get up, balling his fist, and he smiles. Once Guts swings again, Griffith catches him and slams him to the ground, telling him, "You made me a bit dizzy, but this is going to end here. So are you going to surrender, or will I have to dislocate your shoulder?" Guts begins to struggle, but as he turns back to Griffith, he tells him, "Piss off." And then, pop! Everyone begins to surround Griffith, telling him, "That was amazing." But then Griffith looks down and he grabs Guts by the face, telling him, "You're mine now." Then he turns back and he tells everyone, from now on, he's a part of the Hawks. Later that night, all Guts can do is think about how he was defeated. It was a complete loss to that babbling guy, the smiling innocent face, just like a little kid. But soon he begins to hear rustling outside of his tent, and he overhears Corcus and a group of men getting ready to ambush him. As Guts grabs his sword, he smiles. But then he hears Casca telling them that they shouldn't do what they're about to do. Even wounded, they're no match for him. So if they go back to their tents, she'll forget this ever happened. Corcus says that she should almost feel that vengeful feeling, right? Griffith made her sleep with him for 2 nights straight. Casca takes out her sword and tells him, "Say it again." And the men quickly say that they're kidding, and they leave. As she walks away, Guts steps out, telling her, "That's twice I owe you for now. Thank you." But she just turns her back, stating, "Don't be misled. It was only Griffith's order, so just hurry and die in the battlefield." Once Guts regains his strength, he heads out on his first battle with the Hawks. Their mission will be to destroy the other army's supplies and weaponry. However, Guts will be tasked with the rear guard. He'll have to block the enemy so that the group can get to safety. Even though it will be the only way out of the forest, he'll have to be careful of pursuing soldiers. This task will have a very high chance of death. A little while later, the group begins to sneak up on the enemy camp, and as the guard sits and watches, he begins to see a light coming out of the forest, and then more. And then the army rides out. The guard calls out that the enemy is attacking from behind, but Griffith and the group are already riding through, killing anyone in their path. Griffith calls out to set fires, and soon the encampment begins to light ablaze. As the fire begins to spread, Griffith then calls out to everyone, telling them to move out. They will leave and split into 2 groups. The groups begin to charge through the entrance, running over the enemy knights, but as they pass, Guts starts to get into position. He's never seen an attack this fast before, but that doesn't matter because right now, it's up to him to complete his task. And that concludes Berserk Volume 4. Now, you may be recognizing some of this stuff from an old Berserk show way back. I want to say like 10, 15 years ago, but maybe sooner, I'm not quite sure. Either way, this is where we started going into some of the stuff that did get turned into an anime before. So we'll go through this, and then we'll move forward with other stuff that isn't in the anime. Let us know in the comments down below what you like about the Berserk story. Subscribe to Mangastorian for more manga videos, and follow us on Twitter @Mangastorian to give us recommendations on more manga that you'd like us to do. I'm Benny, and I'll see you next time right here.